basically she puts me in like a waiting room area, and she tells me like just basically like stay here because of the simple fact that my clothes were like literally soaked. Well, not soaked, but it was pretty bad. I was dirty. So basically she has me go in there, and she gives me like things to change into, clean up. So I go to the bathroom, and it takes me a while to clean up because, like I said, every time I'm standing up, it's pretty bad. So I finally get all cleaned up, and the next thing you know, there's that bang at the bathroom door. I'm like, fuck. And it scared me. You know what happens when you get scared? So basically, I gushed out all over the floor, and I felt horrible. I started crying. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, like, this literally can't get any worse. So I clean myself up, and I'm standing there, like, practically, and I'm like, okay, well, I've been in the bathroom for a little bit. Have you guys called my name for, like, blood or anything like that? And like I said, I'm standing, so things get really, really bad pretty fastly. So the nurse, she grabs me, and she's like, sweetie, we've been calling you for a while, but let's get you into a room, let's get you cleaned up. I said, okay. So as soon as they get me done cleaning up, they're like, well, basically she's like, well, they've been calling you for I think she said CT scan, but it wasn't a CT scan, it was an ultrasound. But we're gonna get you all cleaned up first, and then, you know, we'll take you to ultrasound. I said, okay. I felt so bad. I was beyond embarrassed. I was crying. I was mentally like not okay. Like I just couldn't do it. And like one of the ladies, she's wiping me off, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry about the situation. Like, telling her everything that's going on, and she's like, sweetie, this is our job. Like, there's nothing for you to be apologizing for. We're here for you. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, oh my god, thank you. Like, thankfully these people are nice to me and not like butt heads practically. So we go to the ultrasound, and the lady, she's like taking me in the wheelchair, and she's like talking to me. She's like, is this your first pregnancy? Da 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 da. I'm like, no, this is my second, but I kind of already put it in my brain that I was miscarrying. So I told her, I said, more than likely I'm miscarrying. So we get into there, I stand up, that happens again. But she's like, it's okay, it's fine, da 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 da. So we go in there, like I said, we're in there. She does a stomach one, and she asks, she's like, well, they're requesting a area. They're requesting one to do in your area. So I'm like, okay, fine, you know. I was uncomfortable, but I knew that that was the only way that we were gonna get an answer on it, exactly what was going on. So go there, they do what they have to do. She gets me clothes to change into again, and at that time, I'm not bleeding as bad as I was like before. So we go back, I sit in there, I go, they give me an IV, she gives me medicine. I can't remember exactly what the medicine was. I just know that it made me pretty tired. I woke up, well, I fell asleep, obviously, because I said I woke up. I fell asleep, and I woke up, and it was still happening. Basically, I was still bleeding a lot. I felt it. So I go to the nurse, and I tell her, I'm like, hey, is there any way we can, you know, get me cleaned up? And at that point, I'm feeling a little bit better since I'm on like medicine, basically. So at that point, she's like, yeah, she hands me the stuff, and she's like, I'll be right back to help you. I have like, there was a situation going on that was pretty bad besides mine. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I just cleaned myself up. I cleaned everything practically, and was like, and by the time she came in there, I was like, can you help me like do the back out of the gown? And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So then I just went back to sleep, and I woke up, and they're like, you're gonna be discharged. And I'm like, huh? Discharged? What? Like, I'm still bleeding. But like I said, I was asleep, so I didn't realize I wasn't bleeding as bad anymore. Like, all the whole situation that was happening was no longer happening. So she's like, yeah, we're gonna discharge you. We just need to like check something. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think they wanted me to do a urine. I know that was one of the things. And So I think that was exactly what they wanted me to do. They just wanted me to do a urine. So I went to the bathroom and did a urine. She came back. She was like, oh, you need to draw blood and do, like, basically, they needed to draw blood to check to see if, like, my anemia went bad. In which it kind of did, but not as bad to the point where, like, I needed a transfusion or anything like that, thankfully. So then I'm like, okay, cool. So she's like, okay, we're gonna send you to a procedure room so that we could check and see if, you know, if you're still gonna be bleeding very badly. And I said, okay. What happened was I had a lot of clots. So she couldn't see my cervix. So she had to have a doctor come in. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, okay. She had to have a doctor come in, and the doctor came in and he removed the clots. As he was removing the clots, he removed the baby. Not only the baby, but everything that the ultrasound couldn't see was there. And he asked, he said, do you want to see the baby? And I said no. At first I was like, no, I don't want to see it. I didn't say it at the time, but I was like, no, I don't want to see the baby. And he's like, it's okay if you don't want to. It's just some people do and some people choose not to. I said, no, I don't want to see it. So he finished everything up, and then he's like, okay, we're all done. I said, okay. So at the time when he says we're all done, I think they already have, like, everything covered up. That wasn't the case. I looked and I saw everything. And it was literally the worst experience I've experienced by far. So I called my husband and I told him. By that time they had already left the room when I called him, and it was just the baby and everything was right there. And I called him and I said, well, I saw, do you want to see? And he said yes. So I showed him, and the nurse came back in and she was like, if you want, you can wait in here. We don't want to have you know. You've been through a lot already. We don't want to keep having to pull you back and forth. I sat in that room for a while, just staring at what had happened and thinking. And I couldn't do it. So I went to the nurse and I was like, I can't sit in that room with everything that just happened. And she asked me, she said, well, do you want to send the baby to a laboratory so they can find out what happened? And I said, yes. I want to know what happened. And I got results back, and they practically said that it was nothing me or my husband could have did. It was nothing that had to do with our bodies or anything. It was basically just the baby stopped developing.